Wow. Hey, much love and respect to everybody that's tuned in right now. Thank you for being here once again. I got a great video here. Hopefully you guys think it's good. And again, just want to begin right away saying this ain't directly made to take shots at anybody directly, but everything eventually comes to an end, and things do get exposed when, you know, we're doing research, when we're doing real genealogical, historical investigation. And, you know, none of this is private. This was put out in the public, in a public forum. That's where I got it. I'm going to show you guys where I got this from. And yes, that is Jabari. If you guys don't know, well, you know, don't worry about it. But, you know, he represents the whole, you know, Pan-African, you know, doctrine, culture. You know, they consider him a master teacher, I guess. He comes out in forums as, you know, like the leading scholar in Pan-Africanism, you know. So, you know, he put out his genealogy once in a video. And, you know, ever since then, you know, been interested in following up on that. And I took his advice and got the sources he told people to get. And I got the books and everything. And so we're going to take a look at it, see how correct he was. Again, you know, we're going to do this. We're going to use him as an example. Unfortunately, you know, very arrogant person, you know, likes to try to prove the indigenous people wrong, you know, talks down to people like, you know, people are just crazy or self-hating and trying to get rid of their so-called African heritage. And, you know, I think a lot of it is very disrespectful, honestly. And it's all fun and games most of the time when you're entertaining people, but a lot of youth are watching, a lot of people do want to learn. And so hopefully this video helps out and seeing how you got to actually verify what people are saying, and always do your own research and go deeper, dig deeper always into what people say. All right, so right away, before we begin the video today, they're going to be talking about a Scottish man, right, who's basically the pioneer of the Gibson's family, right? We're gonna see if he's really part of the Gibsons or what other family he may actually be from. But that's to say, it's here. We've already shown the facts, shown the genealogy, shown the history, shown the primary sources, describing a lot of the American indigenous people as complexion as dark brown, as you see here, the Incas in Peru, or of a swarthy and copper color. Again, swarthy definition is of a dark color, complexion, or caste. Again, swarthy, so-called Negro, right? We've gone over many primary sources as well and anthropological books about the Europeans, the families there, you know, talking about the so-called Black Europeans, the original people here. We've shown a lot of coat of arms, right? We know Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, was a so-called black man. We know a lot of the ancient, like the Minoan women you see here. This is from the walls they painted themselves, all right? In the middle, we got a coat of arms. We're going to go over some of this info that we went over because, again, we're going to talk about a Scottish planter. You know, it's conjecture. If we're to say that he was a so-called black man coming from Scotland, that he would be African, is conjecture. All right, there's no proof of that. We're going to show that today. And again, we've already proven, again, if you're new to my channel, again, we've shown, you know, I got videos called Swarthy Europe and its Aboriginal or indigenous inhabitants. All right, and so you guys can take a look at that. Again, this is from William Penn right here, talking about the natives. William Penn and the natives, stating here that they walk and tread strong and clever and mostly walk with a lofty chin, of complexion black, just like the gypsies in England. All right, so they need to be swarthy because of the sun. It needs to be swarthy. Again, what is swarthy? Swarthy, dark skinned. All right, dark skinned. Swarthy, being of a dark hue or dusky complexion, tawny. In warm climates, the complexion of men is usually swarthy or black. The Moors, Spaniards, and Italians are more swarthy than the French, Germans, and English. Black as a swarthy African, all right? Just like a swarthy African, and William Penn saying that Indians were swarthy or black, so-called black, and they need to be swarthy. All right, so over in my channel, again, we've shown so many videos, proof, correlations, historical documents, facts, primary sources, showing you the original colonists, what they were, who they really were. All right, that also the ancient Americans, the ancient Asians. Okay, great video. I recommend it's this one, Swarthy Stuart King James and his Black Jacobites. All right, we're gonna go into it real quick. All right, so in this video, we go over something I've shown before, even before this video, but this book from John McKee. He was a spy that was sent by King William and Queen Anne, all right, and to spy on the Jacobites, all right, and he wrote exactly what they looked like. This is very descriptive. That was his whole purpose of this. He was paid. He was sent to do this on purpose. We're going to get into some of the pages in this video. Again, make sure to go get the full video, all right, so you can see for yourself. Right here, he's going to talk about Charles, Duke of Somerset, master of the horse, of the ancient family of Seymour, who made so great a figure in the reign of Edward VI. What does he say about him? Let me show you guys. He says that he is of middle stature, well-shaped, a very black complexion, very black complexion, a lover of music and poetry, right? Music, poetry, rhyming, music, poetry, rhyming, what? A good judgment, but by reason of great hesitation in his speech, all right? That's Charles Duke, all right? Another example, let's see, we got another one. Says here, Sidney Lord Godolphin, Lord High Treasurer of England, all right? What does it say about him? Down here, it says, he also has exterior of air, a business and application enough to make him very capable in his habit and manners, very formal, a tall, thin, very black man, like a Spaniard or a Jew, just like a Spaniard, black, just like a Spaniard or a Jew, just like a Jew, right? Like the Sephardic Jews of Spain and Portugal, like the Moors, right? The colonists. Now, further on in the video, I skipped ahead a little bit here. This is I'm showing a ship manifest, right? A ship manifest of the Jacobites from 1745. and it describes them, most of them, as being so-called Negro or dark-skinned people, brown, black, brown, black, brown, black, straight, Swarthy, ditto, 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 all right? And it's all over. As you can see, there is some fair or pale complexion ones, but it's very few compared to the other ones, all right? As you can see here, and the names: Andrew Lawson, dark complexion, well made. You see all the surnames: Lawson, Troop, Samuel, Donald, Clapperton, McDonald, Swarthy, slender, dark, thick, dark complexion, dark, brown, well made, black, dark, brown, black, brown, ditto, not brown, lively, ditto, ditto, dark, brown, brown. You see, so this is all the Jacobites. So this ship manifest matches the description of John McKee. So again, that is Swarthy, King James. Check that one out. Two other videos right here, which I would love for you guys to go ahead and check out if you haven't. Again, we're not going to go over the same information. We've already proved it. We've already shown the primary sources. As it says here, about a year ago, streamed about a year ago, 24,000 views, 39,000 views, part 1 and 2. There's a 3 I'm going to show you guys. Swarthy Europe and its aboriginal inhabitants or original inhabitants. And we go over primary sources. They describe the ancient Scottish people of the British Isles as well. Many different European peoples and how they were described in these anthropological books, very old books, things they never showed us, all right? You know, so make sure to get that. We've already shown, you know, the Dutch to hijack when we're talking about, oh yeah, they're black, but then they're European, but that's because they're Africans that went there. No, you don't know that. That's conjecture. We've already killed that. Again, you go watch these videos if you haven't. This is a 5-hour video. Check this out. Part 2. Part 1 is 3 hours. You want to talk about sources? It's non-stop sources. That's just 8 hours, almost 9 hours right here. Almost 9 hours right here alone between these two videos filled with sources, all right, and correlation and facts that you can verify, all right? It's conjecture to say that any of these people are African. We've already proven, right? They're not talking about Moors invading Europe. They're talking about before the Moors got there, all right? There was already people there of color, so-called Negro people, all right, original to Europe. The one right next to it, Who Are the Huguenots? Great video as well. Who are the Huguenots? The Huguenots are, you know, they were the Moors. A lot of them were Moors and Sephardic Jews that got expelled from Spain and Portugal, and they ended up in the southern France and became known as the Huguenots, all right? They followed John Calvin. John Calvin is Cohen. He's a Sephardic crypto Jew, all right, really. So, you know, check this video out. All right, look at that. Alexander Hamilton, the Swarthy West Indian. Yeah, he was a Swarthy West Indian. That's from primary sources. That's what they were describing him as. Real quick, just an example. This is part 1, Swarthy Europe and its aboriginal inhabitants. Again, this is a 3-hour video. Make sure to catch the full video if you haven't seen it, or go back to it. There's so much drop in all these videos. Right here is just talking about the primitive man, the riddles of primitive man. Says the first men were probably small in stature, dark skin with dark hair and eyes with small heads, longer from front to back than across, all right? And it keeps going. Hold on, let me just show you guys. All right, it says the first inhabitants in Italy were of the race of which were called the Lapian, a small dark people like the Bushmen, all right, of Italy. It says here the Basques in Spain and France, the little dark Welshmen and Scots, all right, the Scots, dark Welshmen and Scots and black Celts to the west of the Shannon River in Ireland. All right, let me just show you the source of this, what we're reading right now. And this is called Riddles of Prehistoric Time from James Anderson. All right, this is a book from the 1800s. This is some of the coat of arms of Great Britain and Ireland and the dominions of Canada, right? And in here, we're showing some great images of coat of arms, as you can see. All right, and this is from Family Crest again of Britain and Irish families, okay? Take a good look. All right, right here it says a description of the Western Islands of Scotland. All right, this is a great book. Here's a better view of it. All right, and this is a very old book, primary source. All right, and let me show you what it says by M.M. Martin. 1716. All right, this is from 1716. What does it say about the ancient Scottish people? The inhabitants of this isle are generally well proportioned. Their complexion is for the most part black. They are not obliged to art in forming their bodies, for nature never fails to act her part bountifully to them. All right, they are what? Black. Further on, it says the isle of Iran. The inhabitants of this isle are well proportioned, generally brown, and some of black complexion. They enjoy a good state of health and have a genius for callings or employed. All right, so generally brown or black. The inhabitants of this are the Iran, the isle of Iran, right? The inhabitants of the all are all Protestants. The isle of Gigay, they're all what? Protestants. Remember what Protestants are. We've already shown a lot of these Protestants are crypto Jews or crypto Muslims, and they speak Irish. All right, it says that they are fair or brown in complexion, it says here, or brown in complexion. All right, further down it says about the League of Jura. There's the isles of Jura or Judah. It says the natives here are very well proportioned, being generally black of complexion. All right, again, this book is from 1716. All right, they're talking about Scotland. All right, so we're going to continue with our video now. Again, we was just going back. This is just from part 1. And again, this is 3 hours long. And then part 2 is 5 hours long. All right, we've done this. We've put a lot of work into this. We've already debunked that whole out of Africa stuff. And when we're talking about a real Middle Passage, indentured servants, prisoners of war being brought from Europe, right, on ships being sent to the Caribbean, okay? All right, so real quick, just to do a little bit more correlation, shout out to the brother who did these books way back and was doing the research, proven, that a lot of the Europeans, these noble families, especially the Stuarts and the Jacobites, and a lot of them had to do with establishing the 13 black colonies, as it says here, the Negro Question, part 6, all right? This is just a little bit of the pages, not all the book. We're in chapter 6. It says here, black Scottish Highlanders. It says the Highlanders are generally, this is from Joseph Ritson. He's quoting it, all right? He says, the Highlanders are generally diminutive, with brown complexions, and almost always with black curled hair and dark eyes, all right? He said that. Go look it up. This is from the Annals of the Caledonian Picts and Scots by Joseph Ritson, Volume 2, Edinburgh Ward Lane, 1828. Okay, 1828, page 7 to 27. Look it up. All right, it says Joseph Ritson and Professor Boyd Dawkins are in agreement that the Highlanders, Stuarts, were a black people. But wait until you see the ship's manifest, pages 135 and 137, 139, and the writings of former English Secret Service agent John McKee. All right, we've shown the actual book. All right, they will leave you speechless. If they haven't left you speechless yet, It says here, during the reign of the black German King George I, the Jacobite rebelled. This was from 1714 to 1727. They rebelled in England. This was nicknamed the 15th because it took place in 1715. The Jacobite Covenanters, black Jews, it says, were trying to wrest the crown from the black German kings, Hanover, and place the black Stuart kings back on the throne of England, but this was not to be. The Jacobites were imprisoned, executed, or sent into the colonies on convict ships. I want to remind you that the free black Scots that founded the Americas came during the reigns of King James I of England, Charles I of England, Charles II of England, and James II of England. The free black Scots came into Americas in waves, Virginia, Georgia, right? 1607, Virginia, 1732 to Georgia, okay? Hampshire, 1629, Maryland, 1632, Connecticut, 1662, Delaware, 1701, Maine, 1622, New England, 1620, all right, the Pilgrims, all right? We've already gone over all this, right? Plymouth, 1629, New Jersey, 1664, Carolina, 1663, Pennsylvania, 1681 in Rhode Island, 1663. The second Jacobite rebellion took place in the year 1745, called the 45, under King George II, who was a very evil king. That's the ship manifest we just showed, okay? That's what he's talking about. They got sent over to the Caribbean, and the ship manifest, most of them were so-called black, all right? It says King George, black German king of England, who was also black, the people who were against him, was the first king of England to legalize the enslavement of men. When the state of Georgia was given its first charter, slavery was illegal, but in 1751, King George II legalized slavery. I want you to get this. There was no such thing as slavery in the British colonies because it was illegal, all right? Before that, it was illegal. I have a greater witness than this. Come and see. Come and see, he says. All right. So I scanned this page as well. Thought it was very interesting, showing regions of the British Isles of Scotland and the names, the last name of the families that are found in these regions. As you can close up and see Robertson, Menzies, Clifford, Moray, Drummond, McNabb, McLaughlin, McQueen, McDonald. All right, you see the different ones: Campbell, Fletcher, Grant, Cameron. All right, as you guys can see, Shaw. There's a lot more in here. Probably let me just zoom in a little bit more. Fraser, Mackenzie, Monroe. All right, you guys can take a look. All right, in different areas. So let me just zoom out again and read what it says. It says, take a deep breath. Breath in Hebrew, breath, and look at the names on this ancient Scottish map. Do you see your last name? Do you know someone with a last name on this map? These black Scots were placed on convict ships and headed to Africa, where another cargo was waiting to pick up the West African slave. All right, so they didn't actually go to West Africa. A lot of them, if they did, they stayed there. But most of these ships went directly from when they left the port in Liverpool, wherever they were in, Bristol, Lisbon, Spain, whatever they were leaving, they were going straight to the West Indies. Okay, two different groups of blacks arrived in the West Indies and Americas. One had the unfortunate fate of being a slave and the other an indentured servant. I explained this in great detail in the Negro Question Part 4. All right, so he gets into it. It's a little Pan-Africanish, this author. The books, of course, are written back, before, but still, he was led in exposing all this stuff. He was saying there was two Middle Passages, one from Europe, one from Africa, but we've already seen that really there is no ships coming out of Africa like that, as much as Europe. So as he says here, undisputable evidence that the Scottish Highlanders were black. A description follows of the 150 rebels with Mr. Smith took at Lincoln, York, and Lancaster prison in October 1746. Okay, so again, and this is a ship manifest veteran, 1745, as he states here. And we've shown this. It says Robert Adam, brown, smooth face; William Bell, black curled hair; Dougal Campbell, brown complexion, black ruddy. You see Alexander Cameron, brown. All right, Alexander Goodbrand, Gordon, Grant, Hinchcliffe, Johnson, John Johnson, brown. Kennedy, John Kennedy. All right, black, brown. All right. The Highlanders are generally diminutive with brown complexions and almost always with black curled hair and dark eyes. Again, from the Annals of the Caledonian Picts and Scots by Joseph Ritson, Volume 2, Edinburgh Ward, 1828. The description of Joseph Ritson matches the ship manifest, and the original Scots were a brown skin or so-called black people. Just want to show this on the next page. You can see that. Look at that. So he's showing the Macleods, right here, Macleod. And it says that image from the tomb of Alasdair, Crotash Macleod, the Highlander, image location, right? That's him right here, Macleod. There are two ship manifests that list a descendant of the Macleod clan, Alexander Macleod, page 137, and Richard Macleod. All right, Alexander Macleod is described as brown-skinned black man. The ship's manifest and the eyewitness account of former English Secret Service agent John McKee agreed to the blackness of the original founders of the 13 colonies. Who are you going to believe? Who are you going to believe, Jabari or facts or ship manifests, primary sources? Who are you going to believe? Don't believe me. Believe the eyewitnesses and the artifacts. He means the primary sources, all right? The primary sources. Alexander Macleod right here, brown, all right? Stewart, all right? McNeils, Nichols, Nielsen, Lackey, McGills, McDonald, McPherson, Thompson, Black, Thompson. We're gonna get into the Thompsons today. Black, look at that. He was a Jacobite. The Thompson was a Jacobite. So we're gonna learn about a James Thompson today. I remember that, a James Thompson. And look at that, we got a John Thompson who was a Jacobite, he was so-called black right here. All right, Dunbar, McFarlane, Robb, Kennedy, Chambers. All right, Thompson, top troop. Look, all dark brown, black, brown. You see, most of them, almost all of them, so-called black. This ship's manifest described the Highlanders, Macleods, and Stewarts as being black, which is consistent with Boyd Dawkins' verbal map and the artifacts. So far, we have a trifecta. order of three. We have an eyewitness, Professor Boyd Dawkins. We have untampered images, Black Scots, and a description of the Scots on ships manifest. You still don't believe me, do you, huh? Jabari. So he's a funny author, but he was going at people, in his time. Some more images. Again, I just took some, I scanned some of the pages of the book. Again, make sure to get the full book. It's a great book. Support the author for his research back when he was doing the research, and correlated with the new information we've learned. Right here it says Tomb of James Douglas, the 7th Earl of Douglas, tomb location, St. Bridget's Church, Lanarkshire, Scotland. All right, see this? Douglas. We know Douglas means so-called black. Douglas means black, so-called black. We've gone over this again in my Swarthy Europe videos. Make sure to catch those videos in full length. All right, this is their tomb. This is some of the images there. It says the tomb of James Douglas with his wife Beatrice, their 10 children, William, James, Archibald, Hugh, John, Henry, Margaret, Beatrice, James, and Elizabeth. And then it says daughter over here. And look at the images right here. You see? Swarthy people. They're hiding right here. They've been hiding. All right. Beatrice is right here. It says I cropped the image so that you could get a very good look at Lady Beatrice and Claire Douglas and the other Douglas clan members that were carved on the tomb. You tell me, am I hallucinating? Is the writer suffering from a strong delusion? The colonial history of the United States and European history is one of the greatest hoaxes that has ever been perpetuated on a people. Our children are herded into this government-sponsored school system and force-fed a history that never happened. And then you got people like, the brother that we got in the cover today, Jabari, teaching this false and repeating the false narratives, like they got a PhD in the doctrine and the hijack. They're so smart in the hijack, right? To add to insult to injury, our children are receiving failing grades for not remembering and regurgitating the lie. So now we hate history and all that because now they want us to learn all this false history, right? I could do this all day with these ancient Scottish clan maps and the original artifacts, but I should have been through with this book 3 months ago. Let's look at the map to see if the Sinclair clan lived in the highlands. All right, so he found the Sinclairs right here, you see. And look at this picture of Lady Beatrice right here, and look at the hair, just like the ancient Buddhas, right, with the little curls, right, woolly wool curls, round curls. Continues, says Professor Dawkins informs the reader that the blacks were already in Britain when his white ancestors invaded the land. He also names the location of the blacks. The blacks resided in Scotland, Cornwall, Westmoreland, Cumberland, Devon, Highlands of Scotland, and Devon. This is critical in our pursuit of the truth concerning European and colonial history. Benjamin Franklin gives an eyewitness account of the world order in his generations when he states, the French, Italians, Germans, Spanish, Russians, and the Americas were black, and we have shown that primary source written in 1755. Yes, Benjamin Franklin did say that. All right, we've shown this. All right, this is all correlation. You see, people have already been writing about this. I'm not the only one. Okay, we learned from a lot of people. We put all the information together. We chew the meat, spit out the bones. You know what I'm saying? We dodge the hijack. We pull out the babies out of everything. Thomas Jefferson divides the white English from the black Scots in the original Declaration of Independence. Dr. Albert Churchward reluctantly informs the reader that the blacks populated Europe and North America, and thus they were the original founders. All right. Dr. Churchward goes on to say that the black Europeans became extinct. This is a lie. After the Civil War in England, the black Scots, Irish, Welsh, and black British were deported into the colonies as convicts, indentured servants, or free men. The black Scots, Jacobites, or Hebrews are alive and well in the ghettos of America and the West Indies. All right, I'm not the one saying this. I have produced a ship's manifest that gives an accurate description of the black Jacobite Scottish Highlanders as they are boarding the convict ships. I have shown you the images of the King James Stewart ancestors and his seed, and every one of them was black. I have shown you the census of Seneca Village and presented you with the data that proves Harriet Tubman was a royal descendant of the Stuarts, and we're gonna get that. That's a future video. Oh, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Woo, woo. That's a good one. That's gonna be a good one, all right? So, if you guys want to do the research right now, go ahead. But go ahead, I'm going to do it my way. I have 8 cards left to play. 4 aces, 3 kings, and 1 big joker, all right? Let's look at my final hand. Come and see, all right? Come and see. All I want to say is we ain't bluffing today. We're about to show you how wrong a Pan-African can be. All right, so right now, what I want to show is where I got the info for today's genealogy, just so you guys can see, you know, this is not something that was private. This was actually done publicly and shared with everybody publicly, and he actually encouraged people to verify it and look it up and even get the sources of the books and everything. He was very proud of showing this, okay? So, you know, I'm not going to promote the person's channel or anything. You know, most people know who it is and where you can find this, but shout out to I remember this day he was supposedly debating Phoenix Moon. So shout out to Phoenix Moon, did a great job. You know, at the time, you know, we've already seen that, you know, she was right this whole time. She was right. They've been wrong. They were so arrogant. He's arrogant. He's trying to like prove to her how so-called African he is with this lineage, supposed lineage that he had with the legendary Guinea Jim. So let's hear his version of it before we get into the actual books. Let's go back, like, let's get this like it's the first time. Again, this is just real quick, about 3 minutes. I didn't get the whole thing, of course. All right.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So you can actually see, my middle name is misspelled. You can see Jabari Gambo Osate. You can see who my parents are. In fact, you're seeing my father, Winfred Levy Jacob. It's Jacob for Jacob, right? Can you see that?
Yes.
Can you see that he's connected to another Winfred Levy Jacob?
We're going to see that, all right? We're going to verify that. Again, I'm at the Guinea Jim family tree. We shout out to Key West Mar or Kiowa. Me and Kiowa, we do this sometimes on the background. You know, we build a lot of trees and we try to verify a lot of genealogies and a lot of the mysterious or the ones that are hard to uncover, that people having a hard time historically. And so we try to put it all together. This is one of them, the legend of Guinea Jim, and based on what Jabari was just showing us. And he just said his dad is Winifred, right? Here is Winifred, his dad. His mom, Jeanette. And where's Jabari right here? Oh, wait, hold up. Your name's not Jabari. It's actually Corwin. So Corwin, all right, there you go, Corwin. Corwin's dad, Winifred. And then his dad, Winifred. Yeah, he is linked to a Winifred. So yeah, we got that so far. We see. Yes, I see Jabari. All right, let's continue.
Pearl Bay Anderson Field. You look at Iris Louise Anderson. Can you see that on the page? Iris Louise Anderson is my grandmother, my father's mother. You can see that her mother was Emma Wales Sands Anderson. Can you see that? And as you go further up, you can see who their parents are. Can you see that? Look at now, you're looking at the four line. Can you see that?
All right, so we're back in the tree. We're going to verify that. So again, remember, he just said Iris Louise Anderson. That's his dad's mom, right? And so we got that. We got him as the mom. We got her right here, Iris Louise Anderson. And then we had her parents, who were Emma Sands and Moses Anderson. All right. We weren't able to go up Moses. All right. There's no line. Just want to show you guys that he doesn't have most of his lines done. That was just one. He's just going up a specific line. There's many lines to go up. All right. And you shouldn't stop there. You should keep trying to go up every line. Okay. So he mentioned Emma, right? The mom of Iris. So we got that. Yes, we do see Jabari. We see. All right. I see. Okay. I see. I see.
Okay. You see George Wales Sands. You know, it's going further up. Their parents are William Gibson, Elvira Gibson. Can you see that?
All right, so let's see. So we go up Emma and we go up to Sands. All right, so look at Elvira Gibson, huh? Then Nathaniel Sands. William Gibson is actually, I believe, a brother of hers, not an actual husband. Her husband is Sands, right? We're going up a Sands line, so obviously that has to be Sands. It can't be both Gibsons, because where would she get the Sands from, right? That's her maiden name. She married an Anderson. Remember, it's Iris Louise Anderson. All right, so Sands, we go up the Sands family. We got Elvira Gibson. When we go up Elvira Gibson, we get William Gibson, right? William is her dad. That's what he was talking about. William Gibson, who's married to Esther Brooks, all right? Elvira and William. Yes, I do see Jabari. I do see Jabari. I see.
at this back, what you're going to do is you're going to see the line. I'm showing you my entire heritage of one of my lines. And I'm hoping that what you'll do is you'll continue to look and see exactly how far it goes back.
All right, so he said, I'm hoping you're gonna see, and that's what we did. That's what me and Kyo did, and that's what he wanted us to do. And we saw how far back he went back. Trust me. So everything he's saying, we did. All right, we verified it. All these names you see there in that tree right there, I found all these on the tree.
Right?
Right.
Now you're looking at the last page.
Now he's gonna talk about something about here. This is the part he doesn't even know or has verified. He's gonna make something up here and we're gonna prove it. All right. Watch what he says is Guinea Jim, and that's totally false. But listen to what he says.
Can you see that you're going all the way back to Charlotte Jean Gibson, William Gibson, Charles Gibson, and the person that they call Guinea Jim Gibson? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Guinea Jim Gibson is the person that leads Africa. He was known as Guinea Jim because he was from Guinea Jim. He was from Guinea.
Say what? So he just said, all right, let's go back because we got to verify that. All right. He said, so Guinea Jim is this guy named James Gibson, who's the dad of Charles Gibson. And he left Africa and went to Scotland, right? And then from Scotland, he went to America. So now he's adding some conjecture there, right? He's saying because he's so-called black, right, that he has to be African. He said he went from there. So where's he getting this story from? We're going to go over this today. We're going to see this tradition that was passed down, and the author, who was his cousin, is going to debunk him, his own cousin. All right, we're going to get his own cousin to do that. We're going to go to the tree right now. Now, when we go up Elvira and William, we go to his parents. So again, we got to go up the Gibson line to find Guinea Jim, supposedly, right? So William's parents are Charles Gibson, right? Here goes Charles, that one he was saying, Charles Gibson, and Cecilia Thompson, or Cecilia or Sarah, all right? Thompson Sands, all right? Thompson Sands, okay? Now, Charles Gibson's parents. Let's go to Charles Gibson's parents. For Charles Gibson's parents, we got actually Charles Gibson, another Charles Gibson, not a James. All right, we were able to verify that, in a Sarah Jane. That's what we were able to find. Okay, and so who's this Guinea Jim that he was trying to link up? Guess what? Guinea Jim. Oh, Guinea Jim. Guess who Guinea Jim is actually? Guinea Jim, as it says here, is James Thompson, who happens to be not Charles Gibson's dad, but his wife's father, Cecilia Thompson. So the real Guinea Jim, all right, is a Thompson, not even a Gibson. So right now, what Jabari just said, he made it all up. He didn't even verify if that was true. That was just a story that was being passed on in family reunions. He didn't even verify that. We got the actual birth certificate documents and all that, the wills listing these people's parents and what they were calling him, okay? Now, don't believe me just yet. And you might say, oh, did Kurimeo do the tree correct? Oh, he's just trying to debunk Jabari. No, Jabari's not wrong. He would know his own family. Would he? So what we do have is the actual books he's about to mention right now. I want to go back to the video. He's going to mention these books, all right?
So this image here, let me make it harder, comes from the 2013 Gibson family reunion. I didn't make it. You can see where it comes from. That's why I left it. I didn't take the picture out. You can see where it comes from. You can search for this, and you'll actually see that Bella K. Rose is describing the booklet that came from 2013, long before anyone on the platform knew me, by the way. And you can see that they're talking about the descendants of who? Guinea Jim, right? You'll even see this book. I'm giving you sources now because some people don't know what sources are. I wasn't talking about you. That wasn't meant to be a flight to you, Sister Phoenix. I'm talking about some people who look at this.
All right. So he said,
I'm showing you sources because some people don't know what sources are.
So right now he's talking out his, behind, because he didn't even verify. He didn't even read these books himself. I'm going to prove it to you guys today. because the books contradict everything he's saying. The books contradict and prove him wrong. His own cousin wrote the books. It's funny. And he's talking about people not going off sources. He's on the internet showing you images. I want you guys to realize that. He's on the internet Googling stuff. He Googled Guinea Jim, and of course, this is the only thing that pops up. And that's what he's showing you. And that's what he's reading. He's not verifying anything. He added conjecture, Pan-African added conjecture to these family histories, making people into slaves and African. And he didn't even verify what his own cousin was saying in these books. So it's very ironic he talks about people not knowing what sources are. Just wanted to point that out.
This is a book that was written by my cousin Samuel, talking about him finding Charlotte, reconnecting the Gibson and Cooper families of the Bahamas.
All right, his cousin Samuel. Those are the. We'll see what his cousin Samuel says.
This book here is called The Legend of Guinea Jim. Canon should positive identification based on tradition alone, or is there more? And so it's described the challenges and successes that my family has had in actually describing this man, Guinea Jim. And it actually also describes our connection to Guinea, West Africa. Now, you saw my lineage. I showed you how I was connected to Guinea Jim. I know that took a while, but how long did you think it was going to take me to show you 6 grandfathers?
All right, so I just want to really right away point out what he's talking about in this book, because I got the book where they're talking about West African connection. The only West African connection they have, or proof, so-called proof, is that they tested modern day descendants DNA test. They did DNA tests on modern day descendants, and of course the DNA test put them in West Africa, in Guinea, right? The Basso, this tribe, this region. So that's the only thing this book is going off. Other than that, the book is showing real sources when it talks about genealogy, not about DNA test, okay? So that, I don't even mention it. You can go get the book yourself and see that it's silly. We've done a video. I've done a video. I'm going to show you guys right now. All right, so this is the video I'm talking about right here. I'm assuming it says spit here and know your tribe for $59.99. Ancestry DNA test kit scams. All right, make sure to catch this. We prove it. You hear it from the horse's mouth yourself. I'm talking about scientists telling you this is entertainment only when you do DNA tests. All right, it's not real science. This doesn't work for dead people. It's DNA is for living people, like paternity tests, finding relatives and things like that, not ancestry. You got to do your genealogy. What Jabari was showing, he was talking about genealogy, and the African thing is all conjecture, is all made up, it's all added. We're about to see right now. We've already proven this many times in many different ways in the last 4 to 5 years. Okay, so this is just more icing on the cake. There was Black Europeans. We already know that. We've shown the many coat of arms. Look at this. All right, it says British families, the Moors of Yorkshire. I've shown this, the primary sources on this. All right, look at that. And back at the tree, we got James Guinea Jim Thompson, born in 1793, Savannah Sound Settlement, Savannah, the Bahamas. This is where they were from, all right? And his dad is James Thompson and Agnes Gardner, all right? This is not an African, all right? He's from Scotland. Let me show you his dad, where his dad is from. His dad is from Renfrew, Scotland, Stevens Kilmacombe Parish, all right? His mom is from Milton Kilmalcolm, Renfrewshire, Scotland, okay? She died there too. When we go to Charles Gibson's parents, we got Charles Gibson Sr., and he's also from Scotland, all right? And he ended up in the Bahamas, as you can see. And his wife, his mom, Sarah Jane, we got her being born in the Bahamas. So, hey, we never know. His mom might be an indigenous person, all right? Or not. Cecily Thompson, though, is the one who, as we're going to read, is the matriarch of the Gibsons. And again, her dad, who is Guinea Jim, is a Thompson. He's not even a Gibson. Jabari was wrong about that. And a lot of the people in this town, they still got him coming from a Gibson. They got this fake James Gibson as Charles Gibson's dad, and it's not even real. That's not real genealogy. Right here, I got a Scotland Select Births and Baptisms record. All right, of James Thompson, was his Guinea Jim, again born 1793 in Kilmacombe, Renfrew, Scotland. Father James Thompson and Agnes Gardner. These are not Africans, okay? So the whole Guinea thing is it's all made up. We saw earlier Thompson was in the Jacobite passenger list, and a Thompson was being listed as so-called black, okay? Many families have, this is different families. The Ramsey family have Guinea Jim, same thing. James Thompson and Agnes as the parents. Okay, some got him being born in the Bahamas, but he was actually born in Scotland. All right, we know that we're going to see that. All right, so all these families got almost the same thing and the same parents. And his wife asked Catherine Sands, all right, Catherine Robinson or Catherine Sands, Jean Todd Sands or Thompson, Catherine Robinson, it says here, so she might have been married a couple times. Catherine Sands, who they're calling the slave. Catherine's parents, who they're saying is a slave from Africa. In these books that we're going to read, we got to dodge the hijack. Remember, these authors are still Pan-Africans, all right? So, but we got her parents as Thomas Sands and I believe Sarah Latter or Susanna Oliver. I forget which one was the, these are both his wives. We got her born in 1780, Catherine Jean Sands Todd, parents Thomas Sands and Sarah Latter, okay? Thomas Sands, her dad says here listed from England. All right, nothing to say about Africa. Okay, that's what we found here. And right here we got a record for him. It says UK register of duties paid for apprentices and indentures. All right, indentured servants. Remember what the author just said in the other book, that they were sent here as convicts and indentures. Okay, and these were your so-called slaves that they were saying in history. A lot of these people were being called eventually Africans, slaves, and a lot of them were just prisoners of war, indentured servants. They had a 7-year contract, you know. And again, right here, and we go to her mom. Again, this is Catherine. We're going to read. They're going to keep saying she's African and the slave, and that's why they were calling him Guinea, because he was marrying a so-called African, and that's so false, okay? These are her parents again. Her mom listed here. We got a birth and christening record, and it says mom's name Sarah, gender female, spouse Thomas Sands, right? And child who? Catherine Sands. Catherine Sands, child. All right, they're in England. All right, the birth, whether they're English, that's another thing, but they were in England at that time, okay? And this is the wedding record, Sarah Latter, marriage date 1779, and England to Thomas Sands. Again, these are the parents of Catherine Sands according to the genealogy, and we're still digging hard, but that's what it's appearing to be. Again, I try to verify this and go very in detail to make sure I'm not just adding things. And again, we're going to see the author. He's going to talk about James Thompson and Catherine Sands. He's going to talk about Cecily, Charles Gibson, and you know who really Guinea Jim was. All right, so we're going to get it from his cousin, Jabari's cousin himself, just to verify and correlate the tree that we were able to build here, me and Kiowa. All right, so we're gonna go through these some of these books real quick, and what I have here is this book, The Legend of Guinea Jim. All right, can and should positive identification be based on traditions alone, or is there more? You know, can we just trust the traditions that are passed down? Yes, a lot of it confirms a lot of the history. But it's like telephone lines sometimes. It gets distorted. Sometimes people add their own little narratives to it and beliefs into these stories are becoming like legends, right? Now we got a legend of Guinea Jim, all right? In the foreword of this book, it says Samuel Joseph Gibson Jr., all right? This is the author. This is Jabari's cousin, all right? Has provided us with another landmark work in the study of Gibson family genealogy. His new work is based on years of research, which stretched across 3 continents, involved long hours at the Bahamas Department of Archives, and taxed the minds of elders with connections to Guinea Jim. It is not only critical to establishing and verifying the identity of Guinea Jim, but stands as testimony putting in perspective the life and times of major player in the history of the Eleutheran families, which were spawned by this Scottish planter. Again, Scottish planter. He's Scottish. Guinea Jim, all right? Not an African, we'll see. By meticulous record research, tedious exercise of cross-referencing, family lore, accounts and effective detective work, the story of James Guinea Jim Thompson, all right? James Guinea Jim Thompson, not Gibson, is finally told after almost 2 centuries. All right, already he's proven his cousin wrong, Jabari, he's not a Gibson, he's a Thompson. The souls of early family genealogists like Harris Gibson, Matthew Sawyer, Thelma Gibson, Ralph Gibson, and Gladstone Gibson can now rest in peace. All of the families and descendants that emanate from the DNA of this one man at last have solid, verifiable direct line to their European roots, and Guinea Jim has been exposed. All right, European roots. The legend of Guinea Jim should be required reading for all people descended from Savannah Sound and Tarpon Bay, or Glenelg, as these communities were once called in Ulithera. This work is a brilliant example for students of genealogy and history, okay? Because we into both of those, right? In this channel, right? This is excellent for us. Its research is grounded in history, DNA, family, lore, traditions, and the art of storytelling that was used to preserve the family accomplishments. This book is entertaining, educational, provocative, and revealing for not only the descendants of James Thompson, again, not Gibson, James Thompson, just like in the tree, that's like how we were able to build it, and that's what we determined. Even before I had read these books, I just got these books yesterday. I swear. I just got these books yesterday in my mail forwarding company that brings me mail from the US. It comes from Florida. I have to send it to Florida. It's a mailbox I got there, and then from there it comes to me here in Central America. So I just got this yesterday. I already had the tree done, me and Kiowa shared it with me. He had it done. He shared it with me. And so, you know, we got to this James Thompson. I was like, where's James Gibson? He's not a Gibson, he's a Thompson. Already, you know, Jabari was making that up. He was just going along with the traditions of the slave narratives. Okay, again, the descendants of James Thompson, but all interested in family history on the island of Ulithera. It will serve as an instrument of connections to one's heritage and family legacy. At first, skeptics may have doubts about the possibility of Guinea Jim being the European James Thompson. All right, they're going to be skeptics. They don't want to be Europeans, right? But once they read this work, they will come to the realization that not only has Sam proved who Guinea Jim was, all right, Sam, his cousin, proved who his family, all right, not me, his family proved who Guinea Jim was, but he has managed to put the reader, particularly the thousands of Guinea Jim's descendants, directly into his presence. What an awesome experience. Thank you for this wonderful journey, and we appreciate the author again. Just Google the name, you'll see the book patch will come up.com, something like that. You can order it. That's what I did. The Gibson family is arguably one of the largest in the settlement Savannah Sound and the whole of the Bahamas. They were mentioned by name in one of the Bahamas' first historical books, written in the last quarter of the 19th century. The family became prominent in the Bahamas early in its history and has had more than its fair share of merchants, educators, doctors, lawyers, and politicians. Again, who? Merchants. Who's the merchants? Remember, who owned the ships, who had to trade, who were the port Jews. Yet to this day, they have only a limited amount of information on their patriarch Guinea Jim. All right, so they don't really have the information on him. He's letting you know, which is based wholly on 3 family traditions. All they had was 3 stories that were being passed down. This is what he's letting you know. Sam, this is his cousin letting you know. They didn't really have any documented info. They just had some traditions that were being passed down, one of which is barely 20 years old. One is not even that old. All right, a lot of it is new. Of the 2 major traditions passed down, there are striking similarities and contradictions in the early life and circumstance of Guinea Jim. Currently, the conflicts have not been resolved, and no serious effort has been made to confirm the identity of Guinea Jim using sources other than these traditions. You get what I'm saying? So the author's literally explaining what Jabari is continuing to do. He just grabbed the traditions, Jabari, the stories of this African and this James Gibson who escaped from slavery, ended up in Scotland, and all this other stuff that they're making up. They even got the genealogy wrong. He's not even a Gibson. All right. They're never using sources, any source to verify any of these traditions. Continue, says, does an oral tradition constitute an exhaustive research? That's a good question. Can and should we rely on conflicting evidence alone to identify Guinea Jim, and are there any other possibilities? Since the known body of information about Guinea Jim comes from the family traditions, they will be examined first and followed by new evidence gathered to determine his identity. The evidence presented in this work was drawn from a variety of recorded and authored sources containing primary, secondary, and indeterminable information, primary sources from that time, people from that time, records. Their analysis and correlation has been used to draw the conclusion presented at the close of this proof argument. Before exploring the tradition's knowledge of the vital information, for one of their key characters will be introduced, it will be useful correlating the information and establishing a time frame for the events mentioned. This knowledge would serve as an anchor, grounding us to the most probable reality. Our anchor is Charles Gibson. Now remember who Charles Gibson is, who we had in our tree of Savannah Sound, Eleuthera. He is the earliest documented member of this line of Gibsons. And it stops there. So again, who was the first one they got listed? Charles Gibson. So this is the Charles Gibson that they're talking about. Remember, he is the husband of Cecily Thompson. Cecily Thompson, the daughter of James Thompson, or Guinea Jim Thompson. Okay, that's the Charles they're talking about. Let's go back. Now he's gonna point out these traditions, right? He wants you to know what is a story that was being passed down in the family. This is with the stories that Jabari eventually heard and, just ran with because it just sounded awesome, especially to a Pan-African. All right, now it says here, tradition 1, Guinea Jim escapes slavery. The first tradition we shall examine was related by the late Thelma Gibson, 1917-1986, of Nassau, Bahamas, in 1985. Her tradition appeared in an article of the Nassau Guardian, heralding that year's Gibson family reunion, from 1985. And it says here, one man escaped his territory and made his way to the coast of Guinea, where he got a job on a short-handed British ship bound for Scotland. So this is one of the stories, There he remained for many years. He lived with a Christian family by the name of Gibson, and he was known as Jim. To distinguish him from the other Jims, he was called Guinea. So already that's a false story because he was never a Gibson. You get it? He's a Thompson. He's not a Gibson. His daughter Cecily, remember, his daughter Cecily, we're going to go back to the tree. Again, James Guinea Thompson. His daughter Cecily, or Cecilia Sarah Thompson, married Charles Gibson, the famous Charles Gibson we're talking about, who was born in Scotland. He ended up where? In Savannah Sound, Eleuthera. Everybody knows that he was a foreigner. He wasn't from there. Even the family knows. They just didn't know from where. They also making him an African. They'd say that his descendants, because they took DNA tests, the Gibsons, and they ended up in West Africa, because we already know that that's false. DNA tests are entertainment only, not real for Ancestry. Again, he's from Scotland. Again, James Thompson is not even a Gibson. So that story we just read, it's already false. You see how they just made that up. He was the only black man in his township, which was not far from Glasgow. That's not true. It was about 1830, when he was well advanced in years, that Jim, his wife, and son Charles arrived in one of the first free colonies, the Bahamas. So first of all, again, Charles is not his son. So this story is already false. They're making all this up right now. Charles is not even his son. Remember, Charles is the husband of his daughter, of James Thompson's daughter, Cecily. It says here, continuing with the story, So, dodge the hijack. So it says, Charles, James' only child, married shortly after they came to the Bahamas. Now, his only child, you hear this? The earlier records numbered 7 sons and 1 daughter from that marriage. Today, the acceptance is 8 sons and 2 daughters. William was the oldest, born in 1833. The other children were James, Charles, Israel, John, Thomas, Richard, and David. 2 daughters, Sarah and Charlotte. One thing Guinea Jim boasted of was that he had lived to see that no offspring of his had been subjected to the diabolical evil of slavery. So again, that's one of the traditional stories. We just got that Again, no sources for it. The author, his cousin, already told you there's no sources for any of this. Nobody ever verified it. We already know it's false because he's not even a Gibson. His son is not Charles. Charles' dad is not Guinea Jim. That's his father-in-law. Guinea Jim is not mentioned again, but Charles went on to father one of the founding families of the new settlement, Savannah Sound. Remember, why is he one of the patriarchs? Because he married Cecily, James Thompson or James Guinea Jim's daughter. According to the above tradition, Jim left Africa from the coast of Guinea and settled in Scotland, where he spent many years of his life until advancing age. While advancing age is not a definite age range, most Bahamians would agree that this would make him at least in his 70s. The Guinea designation in his name seems plausible because it relates to the point where he left Africa and his racial makeup. Guinea might originate from an African word for black people, Tuareg Aguinea. No mention is made of who Jim's wife might have been. Was she another African living in Scotland or a Scot? All right, so that's what I'm saying. See, the stories don't even mention none of this stuff. The chances for the latter case would seem to be slim. What early 19th century Scottish family would marry their daughter off to an African and then let him take her off to the Bahamas? The 1991 New York reunion booklet contained the same tradition, but it began with, all right, so listen to what they're saying is where they're getting Guinea Jim from. So this is a family tradition. He's continuing to tell you, right? This is not what's fact. This is just, he's letting you know what was being passed down. And this is another continuation or added part right here. It says in the mid 1700s, when Britain and the United States were taking men out of West Africa to be sold into slavery in the United States and in the West Indies, many Africans preferred death rather than being subjected to this inhuman scheme. All right, so he's getting this from the 1991 reunion they had. The source of this edition is not known to the author. There's no sources for it. But this beginning has become the preferred start of the narrative, being repeated in many later reunion booklets. This edition gives a clearer time frame for Guinea Jim's life. If he was born sometime in the mid 1700s, he would have been well advanced in age, about 70 or 80 years old by 1830. This is an important point which we will revisit. So that was tradition one, all right? This is another tradition, a whole different story in the same family. Well, different way, kind of like a little different. This is tradition two, Guinea Jim enslaved. All right, so the first one was he escaped slavery, and then this is Guinea Jim enslaved. Now it says, the second tradition was related by the late Ralph Winfield Gibson. It was recorded and distributed at the 1985 Gibson family reunion. Ralph was born and raised in Savannah Sound. His father, Caleb, was also a grandson of Charles Gibson, who was born and died in Savannah Sound when Ralph was 31 years old. Ralph and Thelma Gibson were second cousins and shared grand aunts and uncles. He was born early enough to have personally known one grand aunt and two grand uncles. This is how their tradition goes. Now it says that, let's go back to Sierra Leone, where it first started. A father had 4 sons, but one of these boys had a whole lot of warts on his hand and feet. So this man decided to sell that son, all right, hoping that the particular plague would be gone. All right, so now they're saying in this tradition that Guinea Jim's dad sold his own son, all right, into slavery. It's a whole different story, right? So that he sold that son, and that son found himself being resold on the slave market in Charleston, South Carolina. During that time, Charles Gibson was there to buy slaves for his plantation in Long Island, that is, in the Bahamas. He bought this young, strong fellow with others to work for him, including a few girls for the housework. Charles took his newly bought slaves to Long Island, and so the young, strong fellow they named Jim. His owner, being a godly man, took a liking to him. But Jim worked well, but sometimes he was very stubborn and determined. Old man Gibson said to his wife one day, he said, "You know that fellow Jim? He is just full of that Guinea." The way Guinea was used in the family or in the Savannah Sound and still is used today, the meaning is hell. You hear that? They're saying Guinea don't mean Africa. They're saying, and this is in their own family tradition, that Guinea means hell. So if you hear someone in the family or in Savannah Sound say, "Go to Guinea," This actually means go to hell, go to hell. You know, that's what it means, go to Guinea. And so Jim got the name Guinea Jim. However, after a time, Guinea Jim married one of the slave girls, who was the maid of the Gibsons. All right, so this is their story. Let's continue. She was well liked by the Gibsons. To this union of Jim and his wife produced one beautiful little black girl. She grew to be a lovely and well-trained, taught and taught to read and write by the Gibson wife. A few years later, the Gibson son arrived on the plantation in Long Island from Scotland. He was a medical doctor. He was also named Charles Jr. As time went by, this young doctor fell in love with his Guinea Jim's daughter. She loved him very much, but marriage between African and Scot men impossible, unthinkable in the 17th century. For two people in love, not even the 17th century mattered. They were in love, so she became pregnant and bore a son, Charles, number 3, and later a daughter, Sarah. These children were mulattoes. Dr. Charles loved his children, and so they never knew slavery because their father was a slave owner. He also saw to it that his children were educated. Charles became a shipbuilder. He loved his profession and built many boats, large and small. His sister Sarah became a dressmaker, and she sewed for the elite of that day. As time went by, Charles, number 1, and his wife died, and the young Gibson had no interest in the plantation on Long Island. They moved to another island called Eleuthera. There, their professions were more profitable. Their choice was beautiful, of course, Savannah. Sound, the only settlement on the north shore of Eleuthera. It is not exactly known what became of Sarah or whether she had children or not. However, Charles, number 3, married to a cooper or copper. And in that union, they produced a hefty offspring of 8 boys and 1 girl by the name of Sarah. The boys were William, Richard, Israel, Charles, James, Johnny, Thomas, and David. All right, so again, that was the tradition. Dodge the hijack. You know, they added a lot of African narratives and people and slaves and people marrying, and now the Gibsons are the slave owners. All right, we're gonna go back to the trees. We're gonna clear our mind, and we're gonna get the right genealogy again. We're gonna go to Charles. Charles Gibson is Cecily Thompson's husband. Charles Gibson was not a slave owner of any of the Thompson. That was her husband. Okay, that was her husband. Cecily Thompson, who's that again? That's James Thompson's daughter, or Guinea Thompson, James Guinea Thompson. He's not even a Gibson. So all that story is all made up. He had nothing to do with them. Okay, Catherine is his wife, Catherine Sands. Their daughter Cecily married Charles Gibson. Again, Charles Gibson has his own family. Charles Gibson does have a dad named Charles, and that's what's funny because it does match what I found. Just like that second tradition states that there was a Charles I, Charles II, and then a Charles III. Is there a Charles III? And yes, there is. There is a Charles III, as you guys can see here. And Sarah, there goes Sarah and Thomas, all right? And David, just matching what we have here, Jet. The story is something else. Charles Gibson, all right? None of those people, yes, they are Scottish. It does match the story. They are Scottish. Even Charles Gibson Jr., nobody here is an African, all right? Cecily is the daughter of James Thompson, who's also a Scottish man, We're about to see that right now. The author's going to tell us that. So what Africans are you talking about? Again, those are just stories being passed down. We're going to go back to the book. Again, this tradition says nothing more of Guinea Jim, but it does give him a point of origin, Sierra Leone. All right. Now remember Sierra Leone and Liberia. These were actually, a lot of these were funded or founded, colonized by Americans. The American Colonization Society. All right. We're going to do videos on all this in the future. But now we're supposedly got a point of origin, right? Sierra Leone is a country in West Africa bordered by the republics of Guinea and Liberia, south of the Republic of Guinea, Bissau, and west of the republics of Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. During the transatlantic slave trade, many Africans were taken from these countries. I dodged a hijack. The given reason for Jim being sold into slavery is possible, but seems to be more of a dramatic piece than fact. All right. Even though he's trying to go with the hijack, he's saying it's not really, it's drama. It's just made up. It's not a piece of fact. It's not facts. This is Jabari's cousin letting Jabari know, Jabari, listen to your cousin. Why didn't you listen to your cousin, man? Why didn't you even buy the book? Support your cousin and read it, man. Actually read it so he can tell you that's just drama. It's dramatic piece and fact. There is no way to prove either way. Being resold in South Carolina to Charles Gibson from Long Island, Bahamas is plausible, but there are no records of a Charles Gibson as land or slave owner in Long Island or the Bahamas. That's all made up. There is no records. That's all made up. Show me the sources. Stop making things up. So now we're going to go over tradition number 3. All right. Those 2 traditions, they're not facts. The author told you, the cousin who's a genealogist, he's going to let you know, he's going to say himself is accredited genealogist. Now it says here, tradition 3, Dr. James Robert Gibson. Dr. Robert Gibson, this is the famous James Gibson they're making up that are trying to connect to Guinea Jim, but he's really a Thompson. Remember, he's not even a Gibson. Now, while tradition 3 is not really a history of Guinea Jim, but in addition to tradition 1, it is worth nothing here. Over the last 20 years, another element was added from unknown sources. Again, what? Another element was added from unknown sources. Guinea Jim was given a proper name of James Gibson and the title of doctor. All of a sudden, he's James Gibson and he's a doctor. The exact kind of doctor was not included in this story. This man and designation began to appear in reunion booklets as early as 1991. The formal first and last name could be the result of someone researching Guinea Jim and Luthera and coming across James Robert Gibson from 1797 to 1877, a plantation and slave owner of the Waterford settlement in South Luthera. An inexperienced researcher, all right, somebody who don't have experience in this, like Jabari, anxious for results, anxious to connect himself to be an African, right, to be a Pan-African. His whole belief, his whole campaign, everything he puts all his African beliefs and inheritance on is this Guinea Jim, right? So he's anxious for results, right? Due to his inexperience, anxious for results, might have made a mistake. Jabari, you made a mistake that many new genealogists fall victims when conducting family research, all right? The simple fact that Jim is short for James and that he lived in Eleuthera in the same time period as Guinea Jim might have been enough for someone to make this connection, right, with no proof. The evidence indicates that James Robert Gibson was European, not African. And though he spent time in Eleuthera, his home was in Nassau, where he died, and where his body is currently buried. He had no son, grandson, or son-in-law named Charles Gibson, all right? This not real, all right? This person is not the same person. He had no children or grandchildren who lived in Savannah Sound at its founding. In James R. Gibson's will, there is no mention of Charles Gibson or any of his descendants. There is also no mention of Savannah Sound. Research of James Robert Gibson's will and slave registers indicate that he is not Guinea Jim, okay? He is not Guinea Jim. Jabari, James Gibson, the guy you're trying to say is the guy who escaped slavery, all right, and went to Scotland. Your cousin is letting you know, all right? The records, all this stuff indicate that he is not Guinea Jim. The title of doctor seems to have been an attempt to attribute prestige to the family at the time of its founding, and they added the doctor part. You see, it says here, see table 1 for comparative timeline of the 2 traditions, which illustrate their chain of events, similarities, contradictions in their relation to other key historical events. Now it says here table 1. It says here table 1, Guinea Jim timeline comparison. Now it says tradition 1 and tradition 2. He's comparing the 2 stories. It says Jim is born somewhere in West Africa. Jim migrates to Scotland, all right? That's in tradition 1. In tradition 2, Jim is born in Sierra Leone. and then Jim is sold in Africa and then resold in South Carolina to Charles Gibson. So this guy never even goes to Scotland. All right, in tradition 2 says here in tradition 1, Jim receives the name Guinea to distinguish him from other Jims in Scotland. You hear that? Jim, all right, so that's their tradition 1. Guinea Jim marries an unknown woman in Scotland. So now he marries a Scottish woman. They don't even know if she's so-called black or a slave or what, right? They just added a wife. They don't even explain who. Tradition 2 says Guinea Jim marries an unnamed slave of Charles Gibson. Guinea Jim has a daughter. British abolished the slave trade. Charles Gibson Jr. and Guinea Jim's daughter, a slave, bear Charles. All right, and it says in tradition 1, British abolished the slave trade. Charles is born in Scotland. All right, so none of the stories ain't even matching. So basically, you can take a screenshot and read this. It's just nothing is really matching. They're just making up the stories, really. But both traditions agree that Charles Gibson was never a slave. This is supported by the fact that as early as 1834, when Charles was about 25 years old, he was listed as a planter. This was 4 years prior to the end of the Pradille, period of recently freed slaves in the Bahamas. At that time, the Bahamas only recognized Europeans and free Africans as planters. All right, dodge the hijack, free colored people. He's just calling them Africans. Remember, this is a Pan-African. We're in the mind of a hijack here, okay? So dodge the hijack. There are major differences in the early life of Guinea Jim, such as how he received the name Guinea and who he fathered. All right, in tradition 1, Guinea Jim is the father of Charles Gibson, and in tradition 2, he is the maternal grandfather of Charles Gibson, son of Charles Gibson Jr. of Scotland. All right, so the stories don't even match the family's traditions. Both situations are equally possible. The extra generation between Charles and Guinea Jim in tradition 2 is possibly an error in recollection on the part of Ralph Gibson. Omitting Charles Jr. would make Guinea Jim the father-in-law of Charles. A search of the Bahamian records for the entire 19th century was conducted. The Anglican Church of England, Wesleyan Methodist Church, and the Register's General Register of Death gave negative results for the death of Guinea Jim. Jim Gibson or Guinea Jim Gibson. There were also no entries in the slave returns mentioning a Guinea Jim or Jim Gibson or Guinea Jim Gibson on the islands of Eleuthera and Long Island. All right, there's no records. Listen to him. This is Jabari's cousin letting him know if a Guinea Jim Gibson or Guinea Jim died in the mid-1800s in Bahamas, it was not recorded. All right, no records exist. If he was a slave, he was not listed in any of the slave returns. All right, so we go a little further in the book. It says here, people of Savannah Sound. All right, so we just wanted to break down before this the traditions and just basically how it just doesn't make sense and also they don't match. And the author letting you know straight up, he's part of the family. He did the research. There is no records to match what they're saying. A lot of it is just, it's just made up, straight up. I don't know how else to say it. We're not trying to be disrespectful, but we're trying to go and correct history here. We're trying to really do this and not, spread more lies or confusions to younger generations so they can actually think of doing research on their own and verifying everything. Now it says here, Cecily Thompson, wife, and James Thompson, father-in-law. Sometime in 1964, two cousins, Harris Walter Gibson, 1921-1999, and Matthew Cornelius Sawyer, began to research the Gibson family of Savannah Sound and continued into 1994. Both were natives of Savannah Sound. While they were contemporaries of Thelma Gibson and Ralph Gibson, they researched almost in isolation of one another. They were very detailed and soon discovered that their Gibson family research expanded to become research of families from Savannah Sound. In 1994, they met with Joseph A. Gibson, a seasoned writer from Nassau. Their intention was to have Joe organize their notes into a book. Unfortunately, both Harris and Matthew died before they could complete their project. Before their deaths, they gave the entire original collection to Joe, the current custodian. The author was made aware of these notes in mid-2008 and was given copies. Their notes consisted mostly of information derived from interviews and personal knowledge. Rarely were dates given for birth or deaths, but nearly all of the suggested relationships have been confirmed by the author. The author is unaware of exactly what they knew of Guinea Jim, but they did amass a large wealth of information on the Gibson family back to Charles Gibson. I remember that's Cecily's husband. That was the first Gibson that comes into the picture. They also identified his wife and his father-in-law. The compilation of their notes begins mysteriously with the name Guinea Jim. There was nothing else written about him. It was as if they knew this was a starting point, but had no new information to add. His name was followed by, and it says here, Charles Gibson, Sarah Thompson Gibson's wife, William John, and it keeps going here. Now it says, the notes in their format tells us that they were acquainted with the family of Charles Gibson. Guinea Jim may have been the dead end, but they knew Charles Gibson's wife to be Sarah Thompson and his father-in-law to be James Thompson. Oddly, Charles' name is listed last and underlined, but no reason why is given. The entries for James and Sarah Thompson are of particular interest. Sis is a pet name for Sarah. Cecily and Cecilia, Harrison Matthews' informants, were likely mistaken about the maiden name of Charles' wife, who died over 100 years ago. The church registers list Charles Gibson's wife as Cecily with James Thompson. All right, church registers, these are real records, with James Thompson and Catherine as her parents. Remember Catherine, all right? Catherine is her mom. We got that in the tree. Real quick, we're gonna go to the tree. All right, just want you guys to see. So we got James Thompson, all right, Guinea Jim, and Catherine Sands. Catherine Sands, the parents of Cecilia, all right, Cecilia Thompson, who is the wife of Charles Gibson. This is when the Gibsons come into play. All right, again, Guinea Jim is not a Gibson. All right, let's go back. In the register's general register of birth for her last two children, she is listed with the maiden name Cecily Thompson and Cecilia Sands. All right, that's both her names. Thompson is her dad and Sands is her mom. That's her maiden name, her mom's, right? In her register of death, she is listed as Cecilia Gibson. We know Cecilia and Cecilia are the same person because both were listed as the wife of Charles Gibson, having his last two children, Thomas and David, in the register of births. Cecilia is a common misspelling of Cecilia. The only other Cecilia found in Savannah was the granddaughter of Charles Gibson's, right? So we got that in the tree. There's another Cecilia down further on, the two generations down. Most, if not all, early Thompsons in the Bahamas trace their roots back to the United Kingdom, of which Scotland is a part. The name Thompson is of Scottish origin, all right? Remember, we got a Thompson, a black Jacobite, on the ship Manifest as a prisoner. We read it earlier. Let's not forget. He was listed as black, so-called black or dark complexion. He was a Thompson. He was a Jacobite. It says here that the name Thompson is of Scottish origin, Highland, of the two parents of Cecily. James is the likely candidate for being of Scottish ancestry. And we already proved that. We know that. We got him born in Scotland, okay? He left all his property to his wife, Catherine, and his colored children. Or his colored children. So remember, the author's going with that. Listen to what this author, he's going with the whole hijack that all Europeans are white. That's why I told you, you gotta dodge the hijack. We're on the mind of a hijack. He might not know it, even though he's doing genealogy and he's literally telling you, no, Guinea Jim ain't African, he's Scottish. He's from Scotland, all right? And he married Catherine. Now he's trying to make Catherine the African, all right? And he's saying he had colored children, but he was so-called black too, Guinea Jim. So the children were Peter, Joseph, David, Harriet, Samuel, Eliza, Matilda, Rebecca, and Cecily. Cecily, being the mother of the Gibson brothers, would make him their grandfather. James Thompson is most likely the Scotch planter spoken of by L.D. Powlys. Powlys would have been gotten this information from one of the sons of Charles and Cecily Gibson, and possibly Cecily herself. His speaking with Cecily is purely speculation of the author based on the fact that she died 7 years after Powlys returned to England. Many researchers in the Gibson family have assumed Charles Gibson is a Scottish surname, was the Scottish connection in the family. All right, so Gibson, a lot of it goes back to the son of Gibb or Gilbert, Gibbons or Gilbert, the son of Gilbert. Gilbert, we already saw the coat of arms showing a so-called black person on the coat of arms. And we got that in the Negro question book too. Check out my latest video, part 2, the coat of arms. I showed it there. Go check that out. So again, Gibson is a Scottish surname, was the Scottish connection in the family. Little attention was paid to Cecily Thompson. Thompson is also a Scottish surname, all right? All these things are Scottish, all right, not African. So what does it say here? Conclusion, all right? Conclusion, Jabari. Listen to your cousin. You got to read these books next time. Support your cousin and buy the book. Listen to what he says. Samuel, your cousin. It says, conclusion, Guinea Jim, James Thompson, and the Scotch Planter. From the above traditions and new evidence, it can be concluded that Guinea Jim is the Scotch Planter, James Thompson, all right? He's a Scotch planter. His name is really James Thompson. He's not a Gibson. James Thompson was born around 1749. Both traditions estimate the birth of Guinea Jim to be in the mid-1700s, okay? James Thompson migrated to the Bahamas from Scotland. In tradition, one Guinea Jim migrated from Scotland. All right. James Thompson married a slave named Catherine. In tradition, two Guinea Jim marries a slave. James Thompson was 81 years old in 1830. Both traditions say he was advanced in age by 1830. Charles Gibson married the daughter of James Thompson. In tradition, too, Charles Gibson married the daughter of Guinea Jim. James Thompson left all of his property to his mulatto children. The Scotch planter, who was the father-in-law of Charles Gibson, left all his property to his mulatto children. So they're comparing the stories and showing you how the factual parts of their stories. All right. So again, he's a Scottish planter. It says James Thompson was the grandfather of the Gibson brothers of Savannah Sound. In tradition, one Guinea Jim is the grandfather of the Gibson brothers. Right. So it's matching that part, but not on the Gibson. Right. He wasn't a Gibson. They meant through his wife. The above points offer compelling evidence for James Thompson being Guinea Jim, but to some, prove rest and resolution of the following conflict. James is the formal name for Jim, but why call a Scot Guinea? All right. So listen to what the author is going to assume, right? This is conjecture because there is no other explanation because he knows he's definitely from Scotland. So he's got to try to explain why they were calling him Guinea Jim. Now it says here, both traditions say Guinea Jim was African. The name Guinea Jim could easily lead one to believe the individual's name was at least African origin. So now listen, both traditions were wrong. He wasn't African. He's from Scotland. All right. Unlike traditions 1 and 2, the name Guinea being given James Thompson is more likely in the 19th century. All right. You hear that? This was made up when? In the 19th century, in 1800s. This was added. So again, the name Guinea being given James Thompson is more likely in 19th century Savannah Sound than it being given to an enslaved African. As related by Ralph Gibson, Guinea means hell, difficult or ongoing against the norm. James Thompson exemplified these characteristics. He was a European planter in the Bahamas who prior to the 1834 slave emancipation had an extended relationship with an African slave, Catherine. All right, again, he's trying to make Catherine the slave because they're trying to explain, they're trying to see. So, because they're saying all these Europeans are white, right, in this person's mind. So he's like, how did we become so-called black? It has to be Catherine, right? It has to be Catherine. But remember, Catherine, I showed it earlier, Catherine's parents, Thomas Sands and Sarah Latter, right? Thomas Sands, they were in England. Okay? Now, the reason is there is a so-called slave record under Catherine's children, not even her, but Catherine's children come up as being owned by a Sands, and Abraham Sands and Michelle Sands, okay? Now, remember, Catherine is a Sands, so most likely that is her family. That is a family member she was apprenticed to and indentured under, all right? It's conjecture to say any of these people are African just because they were indentured or come up in one record that they're going off. Catherine's not even in there listed as a slave. She's not even in the record or Guinea Jim. Nobody, just the children. So again, he's adding the whole African part here, calling her African slave Catherine. It was an open secret that many European slave owners and overseers had sexual relations, both voluntary and involuntary, with their female African slaves, but it appears James took a special interest in Catherine. They were married, all right? Again, this is his wife. It's not his slave. That's not her slave master. They fell in love, all right? Both of them most likely colored people. It's not no Africans here, okay? They were married. This was at the time when most planters strongly opposed marriage of slaves even to each other because of the inherited rights it threatened to transfer their human property. She loved him, but marriage between African and Scotchmen, impossible, unthinkable in the 17th century. Again, that's from the traditions, right? They were adding that romance part of it, you know, forbidden love, you know. Not only did he bear children with Catherine, but he willed all his property to her and their children. So this is part of his will. I give to my loving wife, Catherine Thompson, the whole of my property, both real and personal, to be in her possession and enjoyed during the term of her natural life, should she be alive at the time of my decease, after which I give it to my children, Peter, Joseph, David, all right, and Cecily, all right, to be divided equally among them, share and share alike, the heirs and assigns forever. Now, what I want to point out in this will, he's not calling his wife his mulatto, his, you know, his mistress, his slave woman, or his slave kids, or his mulatto children, or his slave colored children, you know, his property or anything like that. That's his family. So one thing I really want to point out in these records, there's no such thing as this African stuff, you know. Again, it says James Thompson was a man ahead of his time. His European contemporaries would have surely looked down on this kind of behavior. It is probably from them where he received the name Guinea Jim. That's probably how he got it. You heard what he said? He said probably. Now I want to ask everybody, listen right now. It's probably a fact. When somebody says, I don't know, probably, yeah, maybe he did. Is it going to rain today? Probably. It's cloudy. I don't know. Might not. I don't know, man. Maybe. Probably. It's probably facts. You see where he's making it up now? Now he's doing the same thing with the traditions we're doing, starting to add, because they got to try to explain why these people are so-called black. Where does this Guinea come from? So he's saying because he was white, he got it with a colored, so they were trying to give him the title Guinea Jim, the other white man, the other Scottish white man. But again, we already broke this down in the beginning of this video today, right? The original Scottish people were also so-called black. The black Jacobites, Scottish Highlanders, all those people were so-called black. The ship manifest, all that proves it. All that, the genealogy proves it. The coat of arms prove it. So he continues saying, this would have been an insult most likely used behind his back. Most likely, probably. He's making this up where the Guinea's coming from. However, it will not and is not viewed in this way by his descendants, who are undeniably of African origin and proud. Undeniably, because they took a DNA test. That's why he's saying that, because they took a DNA test, even though his genealogy, which he did, this author, is going back to Europeans, Scotland, all right? And of course, some of these people most definitely mixed with Indians, all right? A lot of these people. But again, this lineage, particular side of his family, are going back to black Europeans. And that's okay. Families are about people coming together. Guinea Jim's story is just that. Two people coming together in spite of societal pressures and producing something of which to be proud. James Thompson may not be the first of the Savannah Sound Gibsons, but he is their oldest documented ancestor in Savannah Sound. Again, he is not a Gibson. All right? See table 2, the author's letting you know. See table 2 for comparison of the life of James Thompson and the two traditions. For a list of James Thompson's grandchildren from his daughter Cecily and son-in-law Charles Gibson. Within the pages of this book, proof Guinea Jim's connection to the Gibson family of Savannah Sound is presented, but the Gibsons are just one branch of his descendants. From him comes the Gibsons, the Thompsons, the Sands, and Bullards of Savannah Sound. See Appendix A for a listing of some of the first two generations of these descendants. James Guinea Jim Thompson, all right? Thompson. Guinea Jim is James Thompson. He just added the Guinea conjecture. Nobody really knows where it's coming from. The grandfather of the Gibson brothers and Scotch Planter of Savannah Sound. So we get into this book now, The Descendants of Guinea Jim, Families of Savannah Sound, Eleuthera, Bahamas, Volume 1. Again, this is from the same author and the cousin of Jabari, Samuel J. Gibson, because he said that's his cousin. You know, I'm just going off what he said. All right. And it says here in the introduction, it says Guinea Jim's descendants make up the bulk of Savannah Sound's founding families, which include but are not limited to the Clarks, Culmers, Coopers, Gibsons, Johnsons, Sands, and Thompsons. He has well over 3,000 known descendants living in the countries like the Bahamas, the United States, Guyana, the United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates. They are found in the walks of life, occupations, and social economic groups. They made their mark in education, medicine, politics, law enforcement, military, religion, in the Bahamas, and abroad. With all the above, most of his descendants know next to nothing about Guinea Jim. Even with all that, all these people, they know nothing, all right? They know nothing of Guinea Jim. This is their own family saying this, how they are descended from him or how they relate to each other. A major contributor to the above situation is families not documenting their history for future generations. Some may even have hid bits of history considered taboo at the time. This point is driven home by the Akan word sankofa, which means it is not taboo to fetch what is a risk of being left behind. With each passing generation, our story is a risk to be lost to time. Our history is not just our story, it's who we are. In a world where genealogy's popularity has grown exponentially, all right, this story will be goldmine for both researchers and enthusiasts, all right, because we're enthusiasts in history and genealogy. And, you know, again, remember this, again, he just added a whole African word there just to add to his point or something. It had nothing to do with Guinea Jim. But this is so he can show you, again, we're in the mind of a hijack. He is a Pan-African, and maybe not willingly, maybe he just still believed, you know, at the time he was writing this, and maybe still, I don't know right now. No disrespect. We love the book. Thank you for sharing this. And I'll make sure that you guys like this to buy it. Go to the website there, or just Google the name of these books and you'll see it pop up and order it. All right. But he's adding his, you know, conjecture, some parts of it, you know, with the African part. Now it says here, this is the facts, and this is why we're reading this. My genealogical journey begins in 1991 after attending my first Gibson family reunion. The Savannah Sound Gibsons have Cicely Gibson Thompson as their matriarch, right? Matches what we have, right? That's their matriarch. She's the matriarch of the Gibsons because she's Guinea Jim's daughter, James Thompson, right? She's a Thompson as their matriarch. Cicely is the youngest daughter of Guinea Jim and my third great grandmother, all right? Third great grandmother, his third great grandmother, Cicely, all right? This person right here, Cicely, is the person, the author we're reading right now. That's his third great grandmother. And that's Jabari's cousin, right? So this is Jabari's most likely third or fourth great grandmother, all right? At first, my focus was to learn my immediate line of descent back to Cicely's husband, Charles Gibson. This seemed like a simple task, seeing that I had in my possession a line chart with the given names of my great and second great grandfather and his siblings, grand aunts and uncles. The task turned out to be the exact opposite of simple, requiring many hours of research, which included interviews and document searches. This is something Jabari probably would never do. Many Gibson cousins may recall an unexpected phone call from a New Yorker claiming to be their cousin and collecting information for the Gibson family tree. I began collecting data with a pen and pad, but had to quickly abandon them for a genealogical program. After somewhat completing my direct family line, I moved on to other children of Charles and Cicely Gibson. After that, I went on to find out that who the mysterious Guinea Jim was. He found out. It became necessary to learn how to evaluate evidence, read and transcribe 18th and 19th century documents. I became familiar with multiple national archives and genealogies. This journey forced me to become acquainted with old maps, ship records, and even weather patterns. Along the way, I became the college accredited genealogist, all right? He said he's an accredited genealogist. I didn't even know you can get a college degree in that. I mean, I should try that out. Conducted a DNA study and published several works on Guinea Jim and his descendants, okay? It says here, our story, most of what we know of Guinea Jim was passed down to us by our ancestors. There are events in his life that were documented, but they are few. Like all stories or memories passed down through the generations, the details can become subject to alterations, additions and or omissions to fit the personality and or beliefs, like Pan-African beliefs, right, of the individuals passing them on. Jabari. Oddly, the known traditions relating to Guinea Jim seem to have been passed down exclusively by the descendants of Cicely Gibson, Guinea Jim's youngest daughter. It says here, the following is a narrative originally produced by the author accompanying his 2013 work, The Legend of Guinea Jim. It is a culmination of decades of research and the author's effort to marry the above-mentioned history with all known documentary evidence into a more historically and chronologically accurate narrative of the life of Guinea Jim and the birth of his children. His story started long ago in Scotland, okay? We're talking about who? Guinea Jim, the Scottish planter, the Scottish planter. His story started where? In Scotland, not Africa, though. The place passed down through our traditions somewhere near Glasgow, where a child named James Thompson was born about 1749. They don't really know. All right, they don't really know. They have that wrong probably. Little is known about his early life in Scotland. It is assumed he led a typical life for the time. Sometime in the late 1700s, he decided to relocate to one of Britain's colonies in the Caribbean. So he decided to go over there, right? The Bahamas was arguably the most beautiful and stable of the Caribbean colonies. Once there, James began to make his living as a planter in the quaint settlement of Savannah Sound. James was no ordinary planter. Unlike his peers, he abhorred the practice of slavery. He never became a slave owner like most planters of his day. In fact, he developed many close relationships with Africans in the Bahamas, free and slaves. So again, those stories of him passing down his inheritance to his slaves or colored, he was never a slave owner, right? He's letting you know right here. All right. Then near the turn of the century, by 1801, James did the unthinkable. He married a slave of one of his neighbors, Abraham Sands. All right, Abraham Sands. And remember, he carries the name Sands. Catherine is a Sands. That's probably her grandfather, somebody she knew she was apprenticed to working under, indentured. All right, and that was whose neighbor? Whose neighbor? That was Guinea Jim's neighbor. All right, Guinea Jim's neighbor. So he married a slave of one of his neighbors, Abraham Sands. Her name was Catherine, and she was reputed to be the most beautiful woman in the settlement. This relationship blossomed relatively late in their lives. James was about 52 years old, and Catherine was 36. This relationship earned James the scorn of many of his European slave-owning peers. They gave him a name to distinguish him from the rest of his European peers, Guinea Jim. All right. So again, here goes the hijack. Because he supposedly married an African or a colored person, he became known as Guinea Jim. But remember, this is conjecture. This is conjecture. There's nothing to prove that. All right. So even that doesn't, remember, he's Scottish. So the whole thing, he's not even African. So it's Jabari was wrong anyways, because he was trying to link himself being African through this Guinea Jim, who's not even an African. So his whole story was wrong anyways. It says the word Guinea has its origin in Africa. Its literally meaning was black people, but in Savannah Sound, it picked up a new definition, hell. Now we can argue that because we know Guinea also meant gold, merchant. Hey, it would be used in many ways, some of which were go to Guinea, and he's got the Guinea in him. It was also a descriptive word for those who were difficult or going against the norm, right? So we already read that. Literally, they're saying it meant hell. It didn't even mean anything to do with Africa. Now it says here, despite this, James and his wife Catherine had a large family of 9 children. Their names were Peter, Joseph, David, Harry, Samuel, Eliza, Matilda, Rebecca, and Cecily. All right, that's the one we have in the tree. They were born between 1802 and 1812. As was customary in the Bahamas, enslaved people took the surname of their mothers. In most cases, that was also the surname of the slave master. All right, so again, they're adding the hijack here. We're in the mind of a hijack here. We got the tree done. The tree is not saying none of that. Real quick, this is just a table here. It says the Scottish Planter of Savannah Sound, the Scotch Planter, James Guinea Thompson. All right, he's not a Gibson. He's not a Gibson. He's a Thompson. He married Catherine Sands, and these are his kids. Cecily Thompson is right here, who we got in the tree. Cecily Thompson. So again, the Scotch Planter, James Thompson. Says here, the confusion as to who Guinea Jim was prompted me to do this research. Many of us are familiar with the story which says Guinea Jim, aka Dr. James Gibson, escaped slavery by going to Scotland and then to the Bahamas after the slavery ended there. Yeah, I know what you're saying. We heard the Jabari tell us that story earlier. Yeah, we know what you're talking about. It was said that Guinea Jim married a Scottish woman and bore Charles there. It is not clear who he married or if she was African or European, all right? See, they don't even know the story. They don't even tell the complete story. All of them settled in Savannah Sound, and the rest we know, all right? At what point or for what reason Guinea Jim became known as Dr. James Gibson or James Robert Gibson is unknown to me, all right? They made that whole thing up. It is possible that someone was researching our family name in Eleuthera and came across James Robert Gibson and thought this was the full name for Guinea Jim. Records show that James was originally from Wales, the United Kingdom, and then moved to Nassau, Bahamas. sometime in the early 1800s. He was married to a European woman with whom he had children. He passed away on the 8th of February, 1877, was buried on the island of New Providence. James owned plantations and slaves on the far south end of Eleuthera and Nassau. He cohabited with one of his slaves named Rachel. Rachel bore James 6 children. Their names were Benjamin, Richard, Alfred, Francis, Anne, Caroline, Joseph, James, and Rachel. These children were all born in the southern end of the island of Eleuthera, not in Savannah Sound. They were all born into slavery. Benjamin and Caroline were manumitted in 1823, Francis, Anne in 1825, and Richard in 1828. I'm not sure if Joseph, James, and Rachel were manumitted before all slaves in the Bahamas were emancipated in 1838. James, Rachel, Francis, and Caroline were all buried at St. Anne's Cemetery on Eastern Road in New Providence, probably to the dismay of his European family. James left all he had in the Bahamas to his 6 illegitimate children. They are mentioned in his will, and 2 of them, Benjamin and Richard Alfred, were the will's executors. Guinea Jim and James Robert Gibson are 2 different individuals, Jabari, all right? And this is your cousin letting you know, okay? This is his book. I'm not the one telling you. Jabari, Guinea Jim and James Robert Gibson are 2 different individuals, all right? Guinea Jim's not even a Gibson. He's Thompson. He's not African. He's Scottish. Scottish, man. The author, your cousin, is even calling him a white man. He's saying he married a so-called black person. That's how you guys became so-called black. That's your cousin letting you know, all right? Which is, still missing information, because we know Europeans, the original colonists, a lot of them were so-called black, all right? But he's letting you know here, they're different people. Although they both have descendants from Eleuthera, they are the patriarchs of 2 distinct lines of Gibsons. None of James' children were Charles, the father of our 8 brothers and 2 sisters in Savannah Sound, all right? It's not the same. Now, what I want to show you here is in this book is that even in the local town, they even continue with the lie, maybe unintentionally, but as you see here, it says the Gibson family tree, and it puts Dr. James Gibson and then Charles Gibson and Cecily and all these people right here. And that's just wrong. It's not even correct. Remember, he's not even a Gibson. He's a Thompson. This is made up. He's not the same as Robert Gibson. That's who they're trying to relate him to. And that's how they're trying to say he was an African and escaped. But I just want to show you that even in the local stories, they still kind of carry that probably there. So we got to dodge the hijack big time a lot of the time, So again, James Thompson, as it says here, was born about 1749 in Glasgow, Lancashire, Scotland. He died of infirmities of age and was buried in Savannah Sound, Governor's Harbor, Bahamas on 6 February 1864. It says when he was 115 years old. Hard to believe. What do you think, guys? Maybe. James made his living as a planter, all right? But again, he was from Scotland, and this is the record which we actually found. It says here 115 years old, James Thompson. James Thompson, all right? James went on to become known as Guinea Jim, a name which lives on in the memories of his descendants over 160 years after his death. It has been confirmed by the author that James Thompson is the Scotch planter mentioned as being the grandfather of the Gibson brothers of Savannah Sound, okay? He is the Scotch planter. Now, further on, regarding Charles Gibson, right? I just want to show you that even in their own family traditions, it says the family traditions offer conflicting stories about Charles' origins. The most popular says he was born in Scotland and immigrated to Eleuthera. Again, let me go back to the tree. I want to show you guys something. Charles Gibson, right? Charles Gibson, because they try to always make him into African as well. Charles Gibson, they say the most popular is that he's born in Lancashire, Lanark, Scotland. Look at that, Scotland. I got that. Charles Edward Gibson Jr., and he died in Savannah Sound around 1864, all right? And again, his dad, Charles Gibson, and mom, Sarah Jane. Go back to the story here. And again, the most popular story or tradition says he was born in Scotland and immigrated to Eleuthera about 1830. Another says he was born in Long Island in the Bahamas and migrated to Eleuthera, again arriving in Savannah Sound. The family traditions passed on by Thelma Gibson and Ralph Gibson agreed that he was not a native to the island of Eleuthera and he arrived there about 1830. 1830 seems to be a likely time for his arrival in Savannah Sound and is supported by negative evidence in the church records, slave registers, and the birth of his daughter Charlotte in 1831. son. Charles was a planter and farmer prior to his marriage to Cecily, and he did so until the day of his death. As early as 1836, only 2 years after the Bahamas slave emancipation, Charles was listed as being a planter. Before the emancipation, only freemen, mostly European, could be classified as planters, okay? It wasn't until 1838 at the close of the slave apprenticeship period. Apprenticeship. Now, these slaves are what? Apprentice, you see? These slaves are what? Apprentice. Most of the apprentices are young children who were learning a trade. Again, these slaves, again, Cecily and these people who were listed under Abraham Sands and Michelle Sands, the so-called slave masters, were probably just apprenticeships, and these were probably their family they were apprenticed under. Now, what's interesting, it says here, Charles was counted among the small minority of African Bahamians that were planters and recipients of large tracts of crown of land in mere 20 years after the Bahamian emancipation. Now, remember, Charles is from Scotland too, so what do you mean African Bahamians? He was colored, is what they're saying. He was a so-called black man too, the Gibsons, right? The Gibsons, the Thompsons, all these people are so-called black, all right? So it says here, Charles and Cecily were married 30 years, and children from this marriage were Charlotte, William Gibson, all right, who basically Jabari comes from, all right? William, who was Elvira's dad, and it goes down to Jabari's people. And this is the back of the book. And I just want to read this part again, the back of it. It says, Guinea Jim remains to be the earliest known ancestor of the Savannah Sound Gibson family, but he is not a Gibson, nor exclusive to the Gibson family. He's not a Gibson, Jabari. Next time, at least read the back of the cover before you make up these stories. All right, so I'm gonna end this video right here. I hope you guys were able to conclude and see what I was trying to show, that, you know, sometimes we got to verify information, you know, especially people who, you know, never show you sources. They're very arrogant. They think they know everything. They talk down to you. You know, it's all fun again when it's entertainment and people are just watching to be entertained. But when you're trying to be serious with history and genealogy, and actually people who are eager to learn the truth, and you're just confusing them more and spreading more lies, then that's just wrong. And then your arrogance and ego is even worse, you know, because you're not even humble. You got to humble yourself, man. You didn't know this stuff. You made up all that other stuff. You never even listened to your cousin. You never even read the book. So I just wanted to go ahead and make this and use him as an opportunity to make an example, not of him, but of the whole movement, and how these so-called master teachers of this Pan-African movement, right? How they be just a lot of the time just making a lot of the stuff up. They're not even sure what they're saying. They don't even got no sources to prove themselves, and they always trying to debate people. That's why I don't really debate people, because that's a joke. It's like me going down to their level. They have no information. They can't even prove their own information. This was his only link to be an African. He was so proud to show his lineage. He's like, I want you guys to see. Do you see? Do you see what we see now? We see. All right, Scottish man, Scottish descendant. We see you're Scottish. All right, you're very Scottish. All right, you're very, very Scottish, Jabari. At least on this line. All right, and you haven't even done your other lines. I suggest you try to do your other lines too. See if you find some other so-called Africans, because this one ain't an African. You're not even African yet. You haven't proved it. You actually disproved yourself, and you didn't even know it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Shout out to everybody who was here live in the chat. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Got a lot more videos coming, especially when it comes to these genealogical stories, all these family trees that we're doing and investigating and building right now, so we can show a true genealogical history of some of the most famous people in the Americas. All right, make sure you guys are doing your genealogy. Make sure you guys are verifying information, what you hear from people. Start asking for sources. And, you know, if you guys are still believing and going over there and trying to debate these people after this, I mean, you're just wasting time. Stop giving these people clout. You're just making them relevant. Thanks for tuning in. Pura vida family. Oh, wow.